I'm totally illiterate. Philosophy is easy. Anyone could do it.
Totally illiterate.
Hello, Zoo citizens. Today I'm going to share some introductory remarks about deconstruction and ethics and the ethical claims and ethical arguments in deconstruction. Let's get right into it. The first aspect to be aware of with deconstruction's ethics is that it is completely alien to relativism. For Derrida, relativism is a completely refuted, just almost joke of a philosophical position. Husserl already took care of it. If anybody's telling you, hey, I don't like Derrida because I want to do the right thing and words mean stuff, ask them to quote Derrida. They won't be able to. Deconstruction's ethical thinking is a universalism. It is never a Burger King have it your way relativism. The flip side of this is something a little more surprising, perhaps, and a little more powerful, which is that you're going to need something like deconstructive thinking for any ethics whatsoever. Second remark on deconstructive ethics, that every Derrida is ethics Derrida. There is not a clear demarcation of ethical and political texts later, sort of philosophical, formal, Western metaphysics-y texts earlier. I'm not saying there are no differences. There are substantial ones and ones that are relatable to this issue, but everything I'm saying here is broadly applicable to the entire Derridean corpus. Third point, deconstructive thinking of ethics and the universality of ethics depends on a concept of alterity, largely taken from Levinas, but also found in thinkers like Kierkegaard in later texts like Derrida's Gift of Death. But the quickest way to get a handle on this is to think ethics as a concept, it seems, demands putting the other first. What would ethics be if it were simply limited to the self? Levinas's famous criticism of Western metaphysics is that it's like a Ulysses return to itself, that as much as Western metaphysics explores, creates, examines, it always does so in order to come back, and thus cancels occult the possibility of ethics. That means that the deconstruction of Western metaphysics is necessary because Western metaphysics is, in a certain way, inhospitable to difference. Now, Western metaphysics isn't only that. Western metaphysics is also like the coolest thing ever, in my opinion. It's all I think about Western metaphysics. It has good stuff and bad stuff. But it's definitely a recognition, alterity-consuming machine. And that is the ethical threat of it. Fourth point. One of Derrida's most insistent argumentative motifs in the context of ethics is this question of calculability and the incalculable, monstrous character of an ethical responsibility or ethical obligation. Most exemplarily, this is analyzed by Derrida in Gift of Death, the sacrifice of Isaac. Very beautiful, very in-depth, very compelling interpretation of the sacrifice of Isaac in that book. But just calculability generally. So Derrida's argument is that if ethics is just calculable, that doesn't really feel like it's ethics. So at my undergrad, there is in fact, a center for ethics, my alma mater, and they examine questions like, should you tip 15%? Should you tip 17%? That's ethics. Ethics seems to have a more interruptive, more almost violently monstrous, insistent character to it. A sort of justice does not wait. Sometimes a sacrificial aspect. And for Derrida, ethics is always going to demand navigating the relationship, which is an aphoretic relationship, so a relationship defined by a paradox from which there is no exit. Ethics is always going to be about navigating as responsibly as possible the relation between that which is calculable and that which is incalculable. An ethical decision for Derrida, if it is totally calculable, it's already made. It's not even an ethical decision. There's no moment of decision. There's no hesitation. An ethical decision can't be, though, completely incalculable, completely without respect to practical conditions, completely without respect to knowledge, then it would be totally irresponsible. So Derrida develops and tries to understand what this means for ethics, for politics, in texts like Force of Law, Spectres of Marx, and Gift of Death, among others. In the last part of this video, I'm going to talk about Gift of Death and Singularity. One of the meanings of the titular Gift of Death is a gift from death, one's finitude, gifts, a finite being their singularity, their absolute uniqueness. Why? Well, Derrida develops some Heideggerian argumentation about how, while you can die for someone else, or you can die for your country, or you can die for God or any other, nobody can die for you in your place. There's a certain fundamental unexchangeability of one's own death. If one's own death is irreplaceable and unexchangeable, that is going to have important implications for how we think about ethical responsibility. Insofar as one's ethical responsibility is, if it truly is to be one's responsibility, unique to them. If somebody else can do it, if somebody else can fulfill what is to be ethically done, whatever obligation or injunction you are to fulfill, then it seems like there's something fundamentally alien to ethical responsibility there. Your ethical responsibility has to be something, if it is to be taken strongly and radically, that only you can do, that only you can fulfill. Someone else can do it. It's not really a responsibility. Hope you enjoyed the video, and as Ed would say, go out there and do some justice.
Pretty stupid, Davis. Pretty goddamn stupid.